Good morning and welcome to our United Way Campaign 20 kickoff. We're so excited to have you here with us today, and we're excited about how Pitt can contribute and make a difference again in helping so many who are in need. Typically we'd be at the U Club having breakfast all together, but because of circumstances, we're doing it via Zoom. Please use the chat feature to welcome one another and say hi. The Q&A feature, we do have moderators on there who can answer any questions that you have related to Pitt United Way. But please make it interactive. We welcome you. I'm so excited to have our panelists with us today. We have Bobby Watt-Gehr, who is the CEO and president of the United Way of Southwestern Pennsylvania. And we also have Harry Sastry, who is our campaign chair this year, as well as our senior vice chancellor of the CFO's office. Thank you both for joining us.
Oh, happy to be here.
Thank you, Kelly. And thanks, Bobby, for joining us. You know, we always prior to COVID, everyone just said, hi, how are you doing? And it was kind of a nice greeting. It's taken on a new meaning, I feel like, in COVID, to really ask kind of, how are you doing? And, you know, how's everything going? So, you know, how's everything going with you?
Yeah, well, thank you. It's so great to be with you in the Pitt community today, and I sure miss being in person in real life, but happy to be able to share a bit about how things are going in the community. But, you know, in terms of I'm doing well, healthy, family's healthy, and in doing important work here in the community. So I feel pretty lucky and happy to be with you today. And how about you? How are you doing?
Yeah, I think similar. You know, the first thing is health. So healthy, family's healthy. You know, we're working through all the challenges, but I have to say, feeling lucky that we're able to kind of get through this, and looking forward to talking to you today.
Yeah, me as well.
So maybe I could just start with asking you to talk about, you know, what the impact that you have seen. You guys have really a front row seat to how some of the COVID is really affecting the community, and kind of what has been the impact on the community that you've seen.
Sure. First of all, I get this question a lot. It really is, you know, we started with COVID, but it really has become this triple crisis, right? So it, of course, started with the public health crisis of COVID. And as that started to really impact the community, we have now seen an economic crisis. And layered in with that, we also have the crisis of racial equity and social justice. And all three of these things have come together at one time to really deeply and widely impact our community. You know, 2 million Pennsylvanians have applied for unemployment. Kids weren't in school. Some of them still aren't in school now, 6-7 months later. The domino impact on their education and on their family stability and their access to learning support has been dramatic. And we think about the older adults and people with disabilities who have become more isolated, and it's been more challenging for them to access the things that they need. So we have seen all of those impacts. And then the second piece of that, Harry, is that we've seen those impacts on people who weren't struggling before the pandemic. So a lot of people were already having some of these challenges, but there are so many new people in the mix. And I think you probably, you know, are acquainted with, have seen it in your families and friends and neighbors. I know I have, that so many people are newly impacted by one of these three layers of the crisis. So it's been pretty wide and deep is how I would describe it.
Yeah, and so as you've seen that impact in the community, kind of what's been then the impact on some of the partnering agencies that you all work with?
So before COVID officially arrived in the Pittsburgh region, we started talking with our partner agencies in the community, and you know, the human service agencies that provide all of the safety net and support services that we really rely on for a healthy and strong community. And what we were hearing from them was they were concerned about getting accurate and timely information. They were concerned about providing services safely to their clients and consumers. And they were really, really worried about their staff teams, knowing that they would need to be engaged in direct service. Not to mention that they were also in the midst of canceling their annual fundraisers and events that they connected with their donors and supporters. So all of this convergence of escalated need in the consumers that they were serving and decreased resources. So our partner agencies have been incredibly stressed to be able to continue providing the support that is so needed in the community. But I will tell you, they are doing an amazing job of keeping up with and making safety a priority and making sure that people in need are getting services. But they're, in one sentence, they're stretched to capacity.
Yeah, and it seemed, I mean, you talked about a triple crisis. It sounds like there's a triple threat kind of with the partnering agencies too. You have more work at a time where it's more challenging to get resources. And on top of that, you're dealing with a pandemic in order to, in how you're actually delivering it. So it in some ways it's a perfect storm, and being able to see how they're doing it within this is really amazing.
Indeed.
So United Way also is, of course, an agency as well. So how's it affected your organization specifically?
Yeah, not too dissimilarly as to what I just described about partner agencies. So we all went home from the office on March 13th, like many organizations and folks at Pitt as well. And on the morning of March 14th, the county, Allegheny County, called us and said, can you help take calls that are coming in currently to the poison control line? We're being overwhelmed with folks asking us questions about where can I get tested? Is it safe for me to ride the bus? What should I do about my kids and work, et cetera? And so we sent the staff team home, and 12 hours later, we got this request to really significantly ramp up 211, which is our 24-hour, 7-day-a-week, 365-day-a-year information and referral service. And so our staff team stepped up in an incredible way. Obviously, we couldn't double our call volume, take double call volume without having more staff to do that. So our staff team that works in donor relations and impact programs and in administration, they raised their hands and said, I'll be trained to be able to become a 211 resource navigator and help answer community questions and concerns during this time. So United Way, like many of the other agencies I just described, has also seen an incredible increase in the volume of work and need that we are responding to as well. And we're doing that from our living rooms, dining rooms, spare bedrooms, back patios, and really proud of the team and the way that they're handling this.
So can I ask you, Bobby, in a lot of factors of what you see of how COVID has hit the country, you hear about how it's been an accelerant in a lot of the things that kind of had been going on. And you'd mentioned this before. Some people were having a lot of struggles before, and COVID has really kind of accelerated some of that or intensified some of that. How much of what you're seeing with your team is an acceleration of folks who had issues before and it's more, and how much of it is kind of new? Because you mentioned you saw a lot of new folks coming as well. Do you have a sense of kind of what that looks like?
Gosh, that's a good question, Harry. And I don't know that the data that we have clearly delineates, who's newly vulnerable versus who has already been having some of the struggles. But imagine, let's take older adults and people with disabilities or people who are already immunocompromised to some extent. In March and April, I was trying to find toilet paper for 3 households. I say that a little bit in jest, but it was a serious matter because I was shopping for my older adult parents and my older adult aunt and uncle who couldn't get out of the house. So multiply that by all of the folks in southwestern Pennsylvania who have those kinds of needs. And so we were seeing a lot of that and trying to problem solve about how do we help people who otherwise have been independent, have been able to get to the grocery store or get to the doctor, and now we're completely new to all of this.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's, I don't have the breakdown, but it's been pretty stark to see the level of need across both of those subset populations.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's helpful. So we're here, obviously, and kicking off the United Way campaign here for Pitt, and going to be asking for contributions. So maybe you can talk a little bit about how contributions kind of directly impact the community during this time.
Yeah, thank you for asking that. The United Way early on anticipated that emergency basic needs and helping make sure that families have food, are not evicted from their homes, have utilities, have access to the health care that they need, has been the priority for us, and in particular, food. We have seen the greatest degree of food insecurity in our region. I'm sure many people watching today saw the lines, the food bank lines on CNN, the news stories early on. So we have seen tremendous food insecurity, and contributions to United Way, especially over this next year or so, are going to really be focused on emergency basic needs, food being at the top of that list. And one of the things that we're really proud of in the last 6 months, in addition to helping our local food banks ramp up their operations, we have worked with the PNC Foundation, Eaton Park, and other local food vendors to be able to provide an additional 400,000 grab and go and family meals that the need was created when kids were no longer in school receiving their school breakfast and lunches. And many of us don't think about that because we don't necessarily rely on or need to rely on that
Right.
food. Many families do. So, you know, contributions this year in particular, and we know this is a challenging year. The pandemic has touched many of us, but we're really focusing on meeting those emergency basic needs of food and shelter and maintaining people in their homes. I just saw a story on the news this morning about evictions, and even though eviction moratoriums are in place, and many of us probably have heard that, individuals have to know how to apply for that and follow through on it.
Mhm.
And we are really at risk of seeing 40 million Americans being evicted from their homes over the next several months. So this is a time now more than ever that the work that United Way supports through Pitt support and community members support to be able to make sure that people have their basic needs met.
And so as you're talking about the crisis and kind of where we are currently, do you think we're still in crisis mode here? And if so, you know, what do we need to do to really move forward out of whatever comes next?
So I think the answer to that question depends on where you sit. That for some of us, and we talked about this when we said hello, we feel pretty lucky that we have the ability to work from home. We have, you know, flexibility with our employers. We are safe. We're not necessarily the essential workers in the hospitals, grocery stores, gas stations, you know, sanitation workers who need to be out in front of this. And so for a lot of people, this still feels like a crisis. And particularly in addition to the disproportionate impact of the pandemic on people of color. And, you know, people of color working in, are more likely to work in essential roles. So they're going to work, they're struggling with childcare, and they're more impacted by the pandemic. So I would venture to say, you know, people still feel like they're in crisis. And the other thing is really important here, even as the economy starts to return to you know, stronger levels, and we're starting to see unemployment come down a little bit, it will probably take a couple of years for people to find footing again. And so whether or not we define that as a crisis, and we only have so much, we get crisis fatigue, so we don't want to be in crisis mode forever, but I do think it's really important to point out that this need will persist at a heightened level for what I believe will be at least a couple of years.
Yeah, yeah, the recovery is going to be incredibly important to pay attention to and keep our focus on. So in addition to the fundraising campaign that we're kicking off today, in what other ways does Pitt partner with the United Way that we can maybe highlight here, and so folks have a better idea of what that would be?
There are so many ways. I was lucky enough to have a conversation with Pat Gallagher, Chancellor Gallagher, earlier this week, and was sharing with him as well the incredible partnership that the Pitt community has with United Way. And it is so multifaceted. And keeping in mind that this is a challenging year for everyone, there are so many ways to be supportive of the recovery. Volunteering, we have Week of Caring coming up next week. I know there are other volunteer opportunities as part of the Pitt campaign. A couple of things that Pitt has done throughout the pandemic, hosting a tech support line for families who are trying to help their kids learn at home, as well as for our partner agencies who are struggling with how do I work remotely with my employees. That's been a key contribution of the Pitt community. We are also working with the Pitt community to help with virtual learning hubs and in-person learning hubs for schools that are hybrid or still fully remote, and have volunteers who are helping with mentoring and tutoring in that regard. So there are so many volunteer opportunities that the Pitt community can engage in that will be really helpful to the recovery. So there's certainly that. And then I always like to mention that it will take all of us, and it not just one tool in our toolbox to address this recovery. So it's obviously, we hope that you will continue participating in the campaign, consider volunteering, but there are a lot of advocacy and policy issues that our community, our state, and our nation will be facing with regard to recovery. And if you can raise your voice around advocating for policy that will help us recover, that's also really an important way to engage. And we can certainly connect the Pitt community with what those issues are and engage you as you see that you would like to engage in.
That's very helpful. Thanks, Bobby. One kind of last question, and this maybe just builds on your last answer here. For Pitt faculty, staff, and retirees, is there anything specific that you think they could do that could help just within the Pitt community? In addition to what you just mentioned with the opportunities, is there something just by the nature of where we sit and where we are that could be a unique contribution?
Yeah, I certainly think, and we're just starting to ramp up the support for the learning hubs. I think that, given the close proximity of the city schools and where the footprint of the campus is, and the fact that we can do this virtually as well, would be an ideal volunteer opportunity. And the other thing is just really kind of keeping connected to what are the emerging needs in the community. It's one of the things that why I'm specifically talking a lot about the Impact Fund right now as well, is that none of us have a crystal ball about how this will play out in 6 months to a year to 18 months. And so if you can consider also, in addition to agencies that you like to support, supporting the Impact Fund will be really important over the next couple of years that will allow us to pivot to the greatest need at the moment. So that would be the other thing I would ask.
Great. So I don't know if you have anything else you want to kind of add on this. I want to just thank you for your time here and talking us through and all the work that United Way has done. It is truly outstanding what your organization's been able to step up and do. But I don't know if there's anything else you want to share before we conclude.
Well, what I would say, first and foremost, again, thank you to you and the Pitt community in the many ways that you engage with us. But I have also said that the response to this pandemic is so Pittsburgh that, and why I say that is it's based on partnerships. So, we've partnered with the foundations in the community, our corporate partners, our university partners, our community leaders, our agency partners, and of course the Department of Human Services and the Allegheny County Department of Health. And it has been, we've all been on speed dial with one another, and it's been about problem solving as these issues have arisen. And I would just emphasize that we don't do it alone. We do it in partnership in Pittsburgh, and our partnership with the University of Pittsburgh is so important to us. And thank you for this opportunity to have the conversation this morning.
Well, thank you. And this has been fantastic. And I want to thank everyone who's tuned in to listen, and just ask everyone, you heard some of the great work that United Way does with its partners. And if you could please go online and contribute during our contribution period. Pitt has always been a great partner with United Way, and we would like to continue that and beat our goal from last year. So please contribute what you can. And if you have any questions, we Kelly and team are here to answer your questions. So thank you. Thanks, Bobby.
Thank you very much. Have a great day, everyone.